business at this time, so we'll move straight on to new business. The first item is regarding the Creel Limits of Sharon Thomas.
Be short.
Okay.
But this is concerning the city of Scottsboro, basically, in Guntersville. And in the last 3 or 4 years, the Creel limit has diminished drastically. And we just decided to take it upon ourselves, which no one would step out and do this, but I do the footwork, I coordinate all this, but it's the Lake Guntersville Conservation Group. And we've had 2 meetings, and we're going to have another one August 28th at 3 p.m. at the COA building in Jackson County Park. And I had spoken with Tommy Haynes about this. We need to get, one thing that was on our agenda was to get the Creel limit from 10 down to 5 to try to see if that would help with the decrease in decline of the fishing. And Mr. Hodges has been to our meeting, and he's learning a lot about fishing, I think, of what we've been discussing. So, but that's one thing that we see a lot of these out-of-towners, and we want the business. I know you want the tourists, you want the tournaments here, and we've seen so much of people taking away the creel to eat. And if somebody comes here from out of state, and I'm not downing out of staters, it's just they're going to go out 3 or 4 times a day and catch their creel limit and come back and bring it to their camp or whatever and go home with their allotted fish and more. And this is what this is about. I've got a rough draft of what y'all can read and look at, and I'm going to Marshall County Wednesday to address their county commission and the legislative delegation also. I talked with Mr. Ainsworth about 2 weeks ago. And it's something that that's one step. And there's a lot of work that has to be done on these tournaments that come here in learning. I know they are supposed to know how to run tournaments, but you see bags of fish sitting on the grass in this 100-degree weather. That's not good. And put 3 to 5 fish in a little bitty bag of water. They're going to have to start learning how to take better care of their tournaments in that aspect of it. And we have, you see dead fish. We were at Goose Pond yesterday, and after they had 3 tournaments that went out at Goose Pond. And, you know, a lot of people don't know how to deal with fish like that, and they put them in their live wells all day and leave them there. They're not going to live. They're not going to live, and that's, I guess, another educational thing that needs to be done. But this that I'm bringing to you today is to cut the creel limit from 10 to 5, and hopefully it's kind of a study in a year or 2, see if that works or see if we can see a decline. But the main objective that we're going for is to restock, because the biologists that were at some of our meetings, they said that the creel limit was fine, you know, we could let it go to 5, but the spawning size fish, the 15 to 18 inch fish, are not there, not as many as need be. And that's detrimental to the spawn and having, the lake has fish, that's not the problem. It's just that size of fish that's on the decline, and they've been seeing that like for the last 3 or 4 years in the lake. And we're going to try to go to the state in February and make a proposal before the State Conservation Board to try to get them to help fund the fish. And if they don't, we have individuals that have come up and said they would, you know, help with stocking. And we're talking about 60 to 100,000 fish. And we had a gentleman that spoke at our last meeting a couple of weeks ago from a fishery out of Montgomery. And he said that a lake as big as Guntersville, that his price would be like 50 cents per fingerling. And if they were like 2 inches, 2 to 3 inches, they had a better survival rate to do that or go that route. And that's why he was talking about 60 to 100,000 fish. So you're looking at $50,000. But as I say, if the state does not step up and at least, you know, do part of it, we've got money backers that says they will help do this. So It's just something that needs to be done because a lot of the clients that these guides have, they say they're not coming back because they're not catching the fish that they used to. They don't want to come down here and just catch a big fish, and it's not necessarily they want to catch numbers. And most of them, put the fish back, which is a good thing. You catch them, take a picture, and release. That's the name of the game. But there are several things that we've got to work on, and at this next meeting, everybody that was in attendance, we had over 100 at the meeting. And they are gonna bring like 3 to 5 things that we can take before the board possibly and see if we can, get some changes made other than just restocking. But it does need to be restocked in that size fish and for that 2 to 4 pound range. Because I know there's a lot of revenue that comes from this lake for Scottsboro and Guntersville.
You have a copy of that?
I have a copy, and y'all can read it, and then make your own, if y'all decide this is what you want to do. Make one with your letterhead or whatever on it, and maybe you can get it back to me, and that way I can get it to Mr. Ainsworth or Mr. Haynes.
Process after everybody finishes, for sure. The basic process of this, there is a big process as was mentioned. There are a lot of pieces to this that need to be looked at. One is the restocking of the lake. There are other things that were talked about in those meetings about tournaments, and I think there are many meetings that will have to be had in the future to determine a lot of that. This is one thing that came up in the last meeting, and I believe Representative Haynes had looked into. And basically what is being requested here is a letter from the County Commission to the State Conservation Board, correct? Requesting that they reduce the creel limit from 10 to 5 per day. So that's what we would need to do if we want to move forward to support that change. It would require a letter from the Commission to do that. And of course, we're just saying today, if we're not prepared to do that, we can move it to the next meeting. But we did want to put it out here and see, have some discussion, see what our thoughts were on it. And Bob, Mr. Manning, I'd like to hear some of your thoughts on that.
Yeah, I agree 100% with what she's saying, and I've been fishing here for many years, bass fishing, and I basically release everything I catch. But that creel, along with the tournament fishing, is putting a tremendous pressure. The major tournament, I guess the biggest tournament is Big Bass Splash, and they've moved it to where it's right during the spawning season now. And that's taking out a lot of those size fish that she's talking about. I know it brings a lot of revenue and a lot of money to the area, but it used to be in May. For some reason, they moved it to March, right during the spawning season. And I also have seen fish handled like she explained, not in a good manner. They'll be live when you weigh them in, but when you release them, a lot of them die.
A lot of stress.
A lot of stress. And it's 100-degree weather. You know how hot the live was. Even if you're putting, most people do put some a chemical in it to try to revive the fish. And a lot of people put ice in there, but some of the ice even has things in it that hurts the fish. If you don't handle the ice properly and leave it bagged, and a certain way you have to do all that stuff. But there's definitely a huge decline on the number of fish most people I know are catching now. I mean, it's like
it's not, some people are lucky and they'll catch 8 pounds, 7 pound, 5, but that's not, people say, well, the fishing is great. Some of these people that don't want to discuss this basically. Mm-hmm. But it's got to be brought to light because there's a problem and it needs to be fixed now.
Yeah, I've talked with some people that's been fishing for 30 years. Mm-hmm. Great fishermen, local fishermen, and I've talked to them even recently, and they're saying the same thing. They're not catching nowhere near the amount of fish they used to catch.
Yeah.
Does this Creel limit, does it only apply to certain types of fish, is it?
Just bass.
Just bass, okay.
Bass only at this time, yes.
Like crappie is a, it's a big crappie lake here too, and there's plentiful supply of crappie.
They are very
And
plentiful.
they only live about 3 years anyway. They're gonna die after about 3 years. But bass are not that way, bass live a lot longer than that, or most of them do if they in the right environment. So I see what she's talking about firsthand.
And another thing is not just necessarily the tournament fishermen, these people that come, that want, their bucket list is to fish on Guntersville Lake. And people just, I wouldn't know how, and some of you gentlemen may know, to fizz a fish. And if you catch a fish in deep water and bring it to the surface and you put it in a live well, it's gonna flip up on its side, and if you don't know how to get that air out of its lungs, it'll die if you don't know how to do that. And that's a lot of educational things that a lot of people, I wouldn't know how to do it. I know how to do it, but I couldn't do it. I'll put it that way.
Mr. Payne, did you have?
Yeah, I'll offer a comment. I was on the phone with a citizen, and he had moved here just for fishing. He was from Mississippi, and he was calling about a road problem, but in our conversation, that got brought up, and I asked him, what's being an outsider, growing up here, I guess we get kind of numb to it, but I said, what would be the largest attraction, and what seems to be the biggest draw? And I guess this has been in a lot of discussions with the lake falling out of Bassmaster's top 10. But he made mention of, he said, look, if it's the lake is really what matters. He said, if you have nice hotels and good places to eat, that's all great. He said, but a hardcore fisherman is traveling from out of town. They want to catch fish. They want to catch a lot of fish. So if the fishing's not there, if the lake's not there, none of the other stuff really matters. And he made mention of a couple of things that I'd like Ms. Thomas to know. He mentioned about maybe closing some of the creeks.
Yes, that was mentioned.
An off-limit time during some of that. And what brought that up was the Mud Creek, the construction we have going on at Mud Creek. He asked if it was going to be closed during that spawning period. And then he said, I go all over fishing these tournaments, and everywhere I go, there's a launch fee to launch your boat. And he
That's
said,
also mentioned too.
maybe something like that for folks place money for launch fee, and then that money be used on the lake. So just thought I'd offer that as a couple of things I'd heard out there from talking with folks.
And it was also mentioned, the same things that you said. Another thing was everybody that comes to fish have to pay a $20 fee, and it be like year-round. Some out-of-towners or even locals, a $20 fee to launch your boat at any ramp. It's good at any ramp and good for a year. That was mentioned. Someone brought that up.
Also lowering the tournament limits sometimes. Most of them have a best 5 fish.
A lot of them 3, but some of them 5.
Yeah, some of them go to 3, but most of them used to have 5. And,
Yes.
a lot of people feel like if you lower that down to 3, you still have the same competitiveness in the event, but yet you're just carrying 60% of the fish around instead of just a thought.
Any questions or comments about this time?
In February.
Oh, what about this? Do you plan on getting this before then?
I will have to find out. I think that can be presented in February also, but we've got a lot of signatures to get from the legislative office and the one in Marshall County
Okay.
and Chamber, and of course the Chamber of Commerce. I went by and got a draft of Mr. Parsons, what they're going to look at signing also.
So in that case, we'll put this on.